everybody. It's James. This is the Comedypreneur Show, and today we have an amazing guest for you. I've been bothering this guy since 2016. I've been emailing him, sending him clips. He's probably annoyed by me. I was actually surprised that he was willing to come on the show and even talk to me. He has a great book called Don't Wear Shorts on Stage. It's all about tips for comedians from beginning to open mics to getting on the road and everything in between. And I'm actually going to surprise him with a portion of the book that I love. That's my favorite portion. And I'll, at the end of this. So get excited for that. Please welcome the very funny, the very talented Mr. Rob Durham. Rob, how's it going?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So like I said in the intro, literally, I think besides like a Gene Perrette book, like you're the second book that I ever picked up. And then I think I bought like the Comedy Bible by Judy Carter. And those were like the three books I started stand-up.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I'm flattered. I've written a few books since then, fiction and one other nonfiction. None of them have done as well as that first one. So kind of set me up as a false hope to be an author of sorts too.
Oh man. So that was the first book you ever wrote?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it I was teaching my first year teaching, and I kept going to open mics, and there was some movie that came out that had everyone thinking they were a comedian. So in St. Louis here, we had over 50 people signing up for open mic.
Wow.
And some weeks I couldn't even get on the list, and I was like, hey, I'm further along than this is what I do. And so I was like, I kept seeing the same mistakes over. So as a teacher, I wanted to help out and make a few extra bucks. So yeah, it turned out really well.
And that book you constantly get revenue from that book?
Yeah, it's not a lot. I just learned about Amazon ads, which I wish I had learned a lot sooner. So those helped. I've put out some, I used to blog every week with something that was either in the book or something I noticed at open mic. And there's several hundred blogs. And then I started doing YouTube videos. Had I started doing YouTube videos back when I started doing the blogs, oh, that would have been so much more money. But oh well, hindsight.
So now what's your goal? Are you going to write a follow-up to this book? Because honestly, this book has helped me more than any other book because like you said, you're a teacher, you're passing that information on.
Yeah, I've thought about doing a second edition of it. One, to fix some of the typos and second, just to update some things. I know one of the things I wrote about was how to, credit card swipers. It was right before the Square app and all that stuff came out. So I know that that's like the most dated part of that. And I've learned to be a headliner since the book came out as well. So, and I think that, the comedy business has shifted so much. Comedy clubs were a lot more of the thing back then. And when I was coming up and learning all this stuff, whereas now it's one-nighters and, a lot of my friends they were doing cruise ships. So the gigs have changed, with the whole online thing. So I've thought about it. The original Word document, a few months after I wrote the book and published it, my hard drive got wiped out by a virus or something. So, I have it on a PDF, which I guess I could convert back to Word, but it wouldn't hurt to rewrite everything anyway. It's not that large of a book. So I've thought about it, but I write fiction. Fiction is so much more enjoyable to write, but a lot harder. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to seem like one of those college professors that keeps releasing editions just to make extra money, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, and maybe actually try and get the second edition published instead of self-publishing it. So
yeah, it's great. I literally refer to it like when I can't remember if I should do this thing or that thing. I'll go back to your book and look at it and be like, all right, that's what Rob says. And he's,
oh geez.
I know. You're probably like, oh my gosh, don't do that. But I love it. It's seriously because it speaks like the language of a comedian. It follows like, this is what I do. And I've been through all that, and it actually helped me. I started producing my own shows because I didn't want to do so many clubs and whatever. And I'm a clean comedian. So I did a lot of private events. So I was making money as a quote unquote hiker. Right. And then I became an MC at the club. Was able to MC, and I started producing my own show. So I was making money more than other open micers because I was one, clean, and two, followed a lot of what you did in your book. And then people were asking me about it. So I wrote a book called How to Produce Comedy Shows for Fun and Profit. And that
Oh,
I sell for like $1.99 on Amazon, but it's like,
yeah.
it's one of those things where people buy it, it gets bought, and it helps a lot of people. And that's really what I do. And I know that I feel like that's exactly what your book was meant to do. So how did you get started in stand-up for anyone who hasn't read your book or doesn't know that much about you?
My senior year at Ohio State, I became a doorman at the Columbus Funny Bone. They moved it to one of those big new outdoor malls that every city's getting. And so I applied to like, I think it was like Abercrombie and Fitch or something. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely not one of these people. And so they, on the interview, she's like, yeah, you're hired. Do you want to work tonight? I was like, all right. And she's like, the headliner's Christopher Titus. And I never heard of him at the time. This is 99, I guess it was. And after about 5 or 6 months, they made me work a Monday night, which was their open mic night. And I was like, I could do it as well as these guys. And I always kind of had visions of doing it, but I know, I was pretty shy growing up. So, I did an open mic at a pizza place, and I stacked the crowd my first time up and won in a clap off and gave me that false confidence I needed to keep going. So it just kind of built from there. And then once I graduated and had with an English degree and nothing to do, I was like, I'm going to be a comedian, because I think the industry was much healthier, money wise back then. Clubs were open 6-7 nights a week. And, I don't know, it just grew from there and became my identity in my 20s. And, what's weird is I actually wasn't a good enough comedian to do it full time until I got another full-time job as a teacher.
Oh, wow.
So
That's crazy. And so I started it in my 30s. Like, I had been putting it off forever. I was a kid that I didn't have an identity except for I can make other people laugh. I'm just like that person. And so everyone's like, you should be a comedian. You should be a comedian. And I never thought it was a real job. I was like, no, it's like an actor that then does a stage show. That's what I always assumed it was. Because you would see those guys in comedy movies, and then they would have their stand-up specials. I just assumed you were an actor that did funny films, and then they gave you like a thing where you could like monologue for that. So I had no clue. So I didn't figure it out till like my late 20s, early 30s. And then for my 35th birthday, I decided, I'm going to do 30 minutes for my 35th birthday. And I started the September before doing open mics, and I did 27 minutes because I thought I had 30 minutes, but I had 27 minutes with my headliner being Preacher Lawson, who was on America's Got Talent, that I hired. And then another friend of mine came on as well. And we did that for my 35th birthday. And everyone who knew me, like other comedians that knew what I was doing up to that point, were like, what are you doing? 30 minutes? You haven't done this for a year. What are you doing? You're crazy. And it went well, and everyone was very surprised. Out of that, I still have 15 minutes of that material. That's actually good material. The rest of it was junk. It was junk. It was terrible. So, but your book was a big part of helping me do that, because I like really grinded it out, trying to figure out how to get to that point quicker. And if I wouldn't have had your book, and I wouldn't have had, Gene's book about writing jokes, I would have never made it that far ever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In that time period.
Yeah, I've had a few people that have said, yeah, your book is the reason I got on stage. There was years, probably the second year it was out, this guy went up for the first time at a St. Louis open mic and just did horribly, did everything terrible. And, sometimes we go up and call back that last comic, kind of take a crack at him. And I'm about to do that. I've got two or three comments lined up, and he comes off stage. He's like, "Oh, it's you. Your book's the reason I just tried that." I was like, "Oh, jeez." So I did not cut it to him. I was like, weird.
So out of all the shows that you do, that you've been doing before all this COVID and craziness and whatever, what's your favorite kind of show to do? Like, you mentioned cruise ships and stuff like that, but do you have like a specific kind that you like to do?
Yeah, I've actually never worked a cruise ship. I like going to new comedy clubs. I feel they use me a lot in St. Louis. Matt is great, gives me work there, but I like going to a good comedy club with, it's set up well. It's got that low ceiling. The manager knows how to run a room, and where all my stuff is fresh there. They're all hearing it for the first time, and I don't have that insecurity of, I bet there's, a handful of people who have heard this before. I mean, those are really fun. And then just, over the last few years, I've gotten to appreciate these small one-nighters in I've done a lot of stuff near Decatur, Illinois. It's a couple hours away, but I don't know what happened there, where that's not even necessary. They're like fundraisers, but as soon as you get there, they repeat 20 times, you can say anything you want. And it's like, all right, they're going to be okay with everything. Not that I push it that much, but you don't have any, there's nothing taboo about them. So those are fun, just because, I get to, I book the show. I bring an opener, whoever I want. And I try and spread the wealth on that. I use guys here and there, but just something, a couple hours out, I can drive home that night. The town thinks I'm a big deal, even though I'm not. They're asking for autographs. I'm like, look, I signed 3 hall passes today. There are sophomores with the signature, but if you want to pretend, so, they pay you in cash, it's untaxed, and they buy books after the show. So that.
And you bring copies of the books with you when you go and stuff?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I bring all my books there. I've got 5 right now, so sometimes I don't bring them all. It kind of depends on the gig. I wrote 2 romance novels under a pen name.
Nice.
I'm slowly, although they sell too. I don't know. It's stupid.
Hey, I love that about you. My wife has an English degree too. She has a bachelor's and a master's, and so she's the writer who makes sure every word is correct. I'm the creative writer who just writes it out blah, and then she comes back and goes, "Did you mean to say this?" And I'm like, I don't know how to spell that word. I just write stuff,
Yeah, it's good to have that second set of eyes.
Oh yeah, she's the best. She's the one that I was helping with work out my jokes. She's like, your cadence is off here, or this is the problem here. So having somebody help you do it. And I have history degrees. I don't have English degrees. So I have a bachelor's in history and a master's in history. So we both made the mistake of going liberal arts when we should have. I don't know. I should maybe not go to. I don't know what I should have done. Anyway. So did you have an album that you're gonna produce? Self-producing album? You already self-produced a book, and it sounds like a couple of books. Have you thought about self-producing an album or a special?
I've thought about that. I think I push it pretty far as the content I put up. As a teacher in a rather conservative district, it's a huge district and people come to my shows, but I don't necessarily want kids quoting my act back to me. And because they've quoted, I've got not a lot, just 2 short sets on YouTube that I put up, and they'll reference those. So I'm like, there are some things that I think adults can comprehend joking wise, but I don't want my students to hear, and they will find that. They've been searching for the romance novels under the pen name, and I made the mistake of saying that I had some. So
don't give out the pen name here. Don't give out the pen name.
No, a couple of them found it a few years ago, and eye contact was over. It was, I couldn't look at them, they couldn't look at me, and I was like, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have opened that one.
Comedians are some of the most creative and intelligent people, so I can understand. I had a friend of mine send me. He just wrote a comedy thriller novel. It's like a private eye. It's like a bumbling private eye. It's hilarious. It's reminded of the show Bournemouth, and I'm like, how are you doing this? I'm not smart enough to do that. So that's interesting that you can write comedy and then a romance, which unless it's a rom makes sense, but just a regular romance book.
Well, it was the first one. There were 2 of them. The first one was about a girl who got braces in her 20s, which I did, and became a stand-up comedian. So it was fairly autobiographical. And then the second is her best friend / are they love interest, who is also a comedian who has to get a different job. So I kind of took, it's basically a theme of that quarter life crisis when all your friends are buying houses and doing all these responsible things. And you're like, I can't find my socks. Where I'm sleeping on a comic's couch. So it catches those themes. And I wrote those before I knew how to write a novel. And just like Don't Wear Shorts on Stage, I started reading books on how to write novels. And I was like, oh, geez, what have I been doing? So now it's, the thing I miss though is I wrote those so innocently. I was pounding out 5,000-6,000 words a day.
Wow.
And now if I can get 2,000 out a day on the book I'm working on now, then it's a good day.
Do you think that you're overthinking it? Is that what happens? Like you got in your own head because of all the other books you read?
Yes, because of the yeah, I have to realize I finally put up a sign that says the first draft is for you. You know, just get through this first draft, because I worked so hard on the last one. It's a young adult novel, as I sell to my students too. There's hot books wherever I can. And that last one I'm pretty proud of. I went through this whole big process. I paid online to go through this revision 26-step seminar. And I remember how to do all that stuff. And now in my first draft, I'm trying to do all that. It's like, loosen up. So like, you know, it's, I guess where your tastes are so much better than your ability, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I feel you. That's the thing is like, I look at the great comedians that I love that inspired me. And I go, I'm never like Steve Martin is one of my favorites. I'm like, I'm never going to be that good ever in my life. I wish I could be, but I'm never going to be that good because my ability's not there. Like I have the motivation, I have all the things, but the skill level, if I can even get 1% closer to it, I'll be happy. Right. So that's the thing. And I feel like, honestly, that's what your book does is it gives you a set of expectations that aren't like, you could be a superstar tomorrow. Cause there's a lot of comedy books that are like, you read this and you'll be selling out arenas. And you're like, that's not realistic. You know, yours is just don't wear shorts on stage. Like, here's a basic thing. Don't do these stupid, you'll be better than 90% of the other comedians that get up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had probably over a half dozen emails of people saying, you've talked me out of going into comedy, which was one of the goals of it. Because I was like, we got to trim down this open mic. People have actually, they're like, thank you for painting the real picture. You saved me a lot of time and money. Like, you're welcome.
Thank you for buying my book you've given me, buddy.
Yeah.
So is that what you want to do? Is you still want to do stand up, but you also want to be a author, like the next Stephen King or something like that?
I mean, it's realistically, I'm a full-time teacher, and I fancy myself pretty good at teaching. I've been doing comedy for 20 years, so I have cut myself some slack. Like, it's hard to be a professional at 3 things.
Yeah.
They are the 3 lowest paying things that you can do. But I think, I have 18 years till I retire. I'll hit 60 and retire from teaching. And then I think by that time I'll have been writing books for so many years that it'll hopefully get to where my comedy was. Because I sucked at comedy for 8 or 9. I think it was until year 9 where I didn't look back on the previous year and go, what were you doing? So I know it's going to be a longer process with writing a book, because it's not something I do every day or constantly. I can't. It takes a lot of energy just to mentally, just to force yourself to sit down and write. So I've cut myself some slack on it. So I figure these books that I'm putting out now are kind of those early MC years and even early feature years. And then hopefully I can put out a really good product by the time I'm in my 50s, at least, I would hope, and maybe get published.
That's great. Actually, I was reading an article saying self-publishing is the future because there's less publishing houses. It's almost like how they're consolidating, like Disney bought Fox. Like there's less places for you to sell your stuff, even though there seems to be more streaming platforms and whatever. They're all owned by like 5 companies, So it's like
you have to get a literary agent
yeah.
to get into those, and you have to win them over in 3 paragraphs. And writing the query letter is harder than writing the book. So
yes, I feel you.
I just don't have the patience.
I had a question for you. Now I went blank. Okay, I'm going to read you my favorite portion of your book, the one that I always go back to whenever I'm struggling. So I'm going to read this to you. And the title of this part, I don't know if you remember this, is Comparison is the Thief of Joy.
I thought that's where you're going to go with. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, good. All right. And so he says, how do I know if my career is going well? If you compare your success to those who are doing better than you, you're never going to be happy. I read that all the time and I go, okay, stop doing that. Stop comparing yourself. Stop being like, oh, I wish I could be that guy. Why did he get that thing? I don't know if you've seen Crashing on HBO, the Pete Holmes show.
I have not.
Okay. So there's an episode called, I forgot the guy's name, called Someone Got HBO. And all the comedians are talking smack about this guy before he comes in the room. And then when he comes in, they're like, oh man, great job. They're all congratulating him. And I thought right away of that part of like, if you compare yourself, because they were all bummed. They're like, what? He's not as good as me. He's not great. I'm better. I'm funnier. Whatever. And then I was like, just do you, just do your act. And then I think Artie Lang in the show tells Pete, like, just do your act, just do you, you'll be fine. And because he's like, well, this guy got this and this guy got this. It's like, no, yourself, and you start to like think like, oh, well, why does he get it and not me, or why does she get it and not me? Then you're just knocking yourself back down the ladder when you should just be saying, okay, cool. That means there's opportunities. That guy got the opportunity. Now I'm going to get the opportunity next. And this motivated me more than anything. I think everybody should have. If everyone just read that, if every comedian read that, I don't think comedians would go around crapping on each other all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very guilty of the jealousy in that. And I'll admit with female comedians, I was like, they're, and it frustrated me. But, you know, I finally got to, I looked at the legends of comedy. I was like, half of them are killing themselves. They're still not happy. So at what cost are they paying to get to the level they're at?
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not happy until their sitcom is in syndication, I think is one of the final steps, one of the final achievements to unlock. And I'm like, you know, just go. And when you make it just about the money, it feels a lot better. I'm like, yeah, so-and-so's opening for whoever at this big theater and it's a big name, but they're probably making $100. I got a private gig for $600. And, you know, so.
Exactly right. I think that's the thing is a lot of times comedians don't understand that just because the prestige of what that appears to be is not the same as the payday for that. They're not always equal, because I've done private gigs where I paid everyone $50 or $100, and they could have been like, well, I could have been on stage with so-and-so on TV tonight. And I was like, all right, well, how much was the club going to pay you? Well, nothing. Okay, then what's the point? Like, you're getting paid. You're making money right now.
What are those likes worth on Facebook?
Exactly. You can't. There's a commercial that I think's showing on like YouTube or whatever, where it's like, I eat my likes for breakfast. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you can't do that. You can't live off of likes alone. You need the money. I think it's a Patreon commercial, actually.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you doing this. And I have one more question. What do you see the future of comedy being now? Because this whole COVID thing has changed so many things. Do you see clubs going out? Do you see like the future being this kind of stuff, like a Zoom thing? Like, what do you see next? Or what do you think?
As soon as we went into this everybody stay at home thing, I released a YouTube video on why I'm not doing virtual shows.
Oh, okay.
And the main reason is, if you watch Jimmy Fallon, those monologues, Fallon and Colbert, those are wonderful comedians that have writers, and it's still missing a lot. It's just not the right format. You know, we're not Benjamin Gibbard of Death Cab for Cutie can sit home and play guitar and get millions of views. Ours are dependent on that audience being there, and if they're not there, it just looks bad. And so I think it's going to recover. It's just going to it could take till the end of the year. I mean, I was supposed to headline the St. Louis Funny Bone last week. My teacher appreciation week I do every year, that's out the window. I have a week in the middle of July, and I've got a really good paying corporate in December that I'm hoping I can at least salvage that. But I'm like, well, taxes will be better this year at least.
Gotta look on the bright side.
Yeah. I mean, I remember after 9/11, there were comedians that were panicking. They're like, we're never going to be able to laugh again. Like, what? No, that's not the case. It's just going to take a while. I think politically, there are people that are more willing to come out to comedy clubs that, well, let's just say the right seems to be a little less fearful of coming out. And most of the comedians I know come from the left. So that'll be interesting when that combination hits, where you're performing in front of a crowd that doesn't see eye to eye politically. I don't get political at all really in mine, because I like money. But I think that's going to be the first obstacle. Another thing, you know, with the current situation now, with the protesting and all that, when the Michael Brown thing happened, that changed audiences as well. There was a joke that I did, I'm not proud of it, just anything mentioning race. Well, I taught my first year teaching was in inner city school. And so I had a lot of jokes about, you know, being the white guy in the building and working with black students. And the Funny Bone would always use me. I was the feature every time there was a black headliner. He'd be like, hey, this is your year, you know? And it went well. But with white crowds, I noticed around that time, they became really tight on anything racial. The white guilt comes back in. So I think that's another thing to consider. You know, both of these major history book events are going to, especially in the next year, and then it may kind of go back to normal. But that's just my prediction. I don't know. But I know there are some open mics. I'm tempted to go out and do an open mic just because, you know, I was like, it's no, you know, it's not going to be crowded. No one's going to be there, just because I am so rusty. It's kind of like if you don't work out for 4 months and then try and get back in the gym, it's anxiety of like, oh, I'm not what I was 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So I do worry about that.
I've done a couple private shows like this, like Zoom stuff, and we just had people like unmuted. Like I had somebody else like run the show and mute or unmute, so I didn't have to worry about that. And we did the show. It was great. It went well. But I also didn't sit like this. I had a full mic stand and a microphone. I have all my stuff. So it's like a stage. I put the mic stand is to the side. I do all the stuff is the same. If we do it that way, I think that could work. But I think too many people are going to sit down like this and do that, try to do this thing. And comedy can't be performed this way. It doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel right. So I don't know. I agree with you.
I say let's keep it away from the audience so that they're hungry for it when we are allowed to come back. And let's not make, you know, I mean, they have enough access to comedy on the internet. Let's not kill the live performance. So
yeah. And I wish I was like excited because I was thinking like, okay, LA County's going to start opening some stuff. Ventura County's going to start opening stuff. We're all going to start getting to be able to go out, and then the you know, all the protests and whatever, and then it shut everything down. They put like curfews on everything, so you can't be out after 6 p.m. and whatever. It's like, man, this is insane. So I don't know. I don't even know when it's going to come back. I'm thinking like September, like maybe if we're lucky.
Yeah. I have a former student who has started open mics, and he was like, this was going to be my summer to just go to every open mic ever. So we did a Zoom writing session last night, and it was pretty productive. So yeah, I was like, this has to be frustrating for those non-jaded comics. For me, it kind of worked as a little bit of anti-burnout with teaching and with comedy. I was spring I get really busy. I coach JV golf too, so it's just, I have no time, but now I was able to, I've written half of a first draft of a book. So
awesome. So do you also do consulting stuff? So if somebody wanted to consult, like have you do writing stuff, do you do consulting and things like that? Could they reach out to you and pay you for that kind of stuff?
Sure. I mean, I've watched, if I get the occasional, I bought your book and, hey, can you watch my set and just give me a few, I'll get one of those every few months, and I'll be happy to give comments back. Now, if I get, 15 emails the day after you release this, maybe set up a little thing there. But I like to help. I help at open mic and just kind of give encouragement. Not always. I'm one of those guys that kind of sits in the back and cringes or giggles when somebody's doing it completely wrong, and everybody, he needs your book, he left the mic stand in front of himself, stuff like that.
That actually did help. That's actually like one of the biggest things that ever helped me. I was like, okay, move the mic stand anytime,
Yeah, but I've matured to the point where I want to see people do well, and especially if you can, a new person, if they write one good joke, you're like, okay, they have potential, they know how to write a joke, and you kind of just tell them build on that. So
perfect. And where can people find you? I'm going to put everything in the show notes, some links to, but if they're watching this and they don't want to look down, where can they find you at?
RobDurhamComedy.com. That's Rob Durham Comedy for Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. I have like a comedian page where you can add me. I made all these stupid bartending videos. I have a bar in my basement, so that's what kept me busy in April instead of writing. And then my books are available on Amazon and Kindle. So
I highly recommend Don't Wear Shorts on Stage. It's like the greatest. I know. And I thank you for letting me annoy you when I got the book and said you stuff, and you gave me
no problem.
feedback. So I appreciate
it's nice to know people buy it everywhere. So
yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it. Thanks for being on that. And I'll put everything in there, and have a great day.
All right, thanks, James. I'll see you.
All right.